Thank you. Hello. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today I'll be talking about continuous delivery on Android. And let's start. A few words about me. So starting from the beginning, my great-great-grandfather lived here in Lviv. So that's cool. That's a picture from like 8 years ago. And this is the picture of this place as of now. I took it last year when I was here. The place looks the same. You may wonder where are the people. They hide in the cars, if you wonder. So that's about me. And before I start the presentation, let me just run a command that will be app release some version number and check if it's okay. You may notice it's doing some git commands. Yeah, it created some tag, so cool. Let's go back. I will explain that later in the presentation, what we just did. So why am I here? I'm here to make you a bit more excited about making everything automated. All the things you can do automated, automate that. Because you can save a lot of your time doing that. And if you save a lot of your time, like for example, before I did automated builds, I did that manually and sent them in a mail to my client, usually once a day. And after that, every commit, every push to GitHub, to your version control system is like a build for free. You don't spend time on it. So it will be about 20 per developer if you do small commits, or maybe it will be 1 if you're just doing a commit and push at the end of the day, which should be a banned. You shouldn't do that, but yeah. So when you save a lot of time, you can do a lot of different things, like try to do quad programming instead of pair programming, or ping-pong Pomodoro pair programming, or stuff like that. It's a lot of fun. Yeah. These guys are doing quad programming. Their computers are that small, like holding them in hands. So what I will be talking about today, after this short introduction, it will be not only about the code, it will be about the process, how you communicate with your client. So agile, I don't like really this word. I prefer common sense development, because agile got like this bad reputation when was introduced in corporations. They call everything Scrum, we are doing Scrum, but it doesn't matter. And after that, of course, testing. I love testing. I probably write more tests than production code right now. I don't know why, but I find it fun to do. And like I said, we of course need a version control system. It's GitHub or it's something else. Well, you could not have it, but it would be strange in 21st century. And after that, we'll go to how to continuously integrate your code using some services, and how to make builds for free for testers, for product owner, for whoever wants to get builds. So let's start with Agile. And one of the things I want to remember is that communication is very important. So for me, it's the most important thing when programming. I know we all like to write code, and we would like to spend like 8 hours sitting there and coding. I do at most probably 3-4 hours of coding every day right now. So communication. When you're communicating with your product owner, you need to extract the information from him, what really needs to be done. So that's acceptance criteria. It's part of definition of done. So you probably want to write tests for your acceptance criteria for everything an app should do, for find edge cases. Think about that before starting implementation, because after you have your code and it works, and you didn't think of one thing, you might have to delete the code and start it all together. Or what we usually do is just add some hack, another if statement, and make the code less readable and maintainable in the future. And how many of you know what is definition of ready? I don't see any hands. Really? Oh, there's one. Yeah. So that's a bit strange, but I will explain it to you, because that's another very important thing, is that you shouldn't even think of starting working on some specific task or feature before all the things that need to be done for you are ready. For example, when writing Android application, you need to have designs. You need to have assets cut from the designs. You need to have working API, at least this one endpoint which you need for this particular feature. So we tend to block so many features, tasks that are put in coding that it hurts my feelings, really. We should think about all the things before doing. It's very important for continuously delivering the features. Because if you start doing something and you're blocked because API is obviously not working, returning some 500s, then you start doing another thing and you're blocked again and you're switching after that. And context switching is harmful. It's waste of time. So I tend to minimize the process. So we usually use Kanban. We tried several like services for that. This one in particular, it doesn't matter, but it's Kanbanize or Kanbanary. Right now we are even simplified that to Waffle.io, which is integrating with GitHub, and we're using GitHub issues. So we tend to spend as little time as possible on that. But it obviously shows everything we need, and product owner can also see what he needs to see. And another very, very important thing is I don't tolerate bugs. If there is a bug I found during development of a feature, well, I'm not actually starting fixing that in the first place. I put a ticket on that bug in our Kanbanary, Waffle.io, or Jira, if you wish. And after completing the feature, I don't ask anybody if I can fix that bug because the sprint won't make it. Like we don't deliver all the features. I don't care about that. If you have bugs, even if you have some features working at the end, it's not a good experience for users. It's not something you can push to the public, right? So fix bugs as soon as you can. And can you automate communication, actually? Well, surely you can. We have, like, for example, notifications about if builds failed on our Slack in some secret channel only Android developers look at. or sometimes product owner if he likes to. Also, we have notifications about crashes from Crashlytics on Slack. We have a lot of these little integrations, so that really helps you find what you would just look up and waste your time again. So prefer pushes for what you can. And the next thing is testing, second point of the presentation. It doesn't really matter what libraries, what frameworks you use for testing, but you cannot possibly push automatically to production without tests. So we use Espresso for UI tests. We have a lot of them, and it takes some time to go to production because of that. And for unit tests, you will have probably JUnit. We use Spock, which is a very cool Groovy framework for testing. If you would like to talk about Groovy and using that for testing after the presentation, will be a good time. So the next thing, well, we need continuous GitHub or any other VCS, right? So it's obvious if more than one person works on a project. So what does it give us? For us, it's probably obvious. It wasn't obvious for me a couple of years ago when I was using zip files to have another version of the code. It was strange times, but maybe there are some students who don't use GitHub yet. It's for free. So yeah, use it. So when using GitHub, we tend to do Git flow, which if you recognize this picture, raise your hand. Yeah, I thought so. It's a lot of people. So I won't try to explain it too much. Basically, you have two branches. One is what is in production, and one is what you currently have finished working on, like small features that accumulate before releases. And right now, we almost every time we push to develop, we already do a release. So that's a command I ran before when I was starting the presentation. So after completing a feature, it will be released. Can happen like 3 releases every day, but you may wonder if it's going to Google Play, if users will get that. No, it's product owner's decision, but I will go to that later. And the script I run, it's basically like this. A couple of Git commands. I stripped it from the details because I didn't want you to concentrate on that. It's basically switch to develop, do a commit with updated version of the app, then switch to master, merge, switch to develop, merge, and that's all. And of course, push at the end. So after that, after we push, we can have our continuous integration server hook into that and start working on our code, start to build it, start to run tests on the code, and finally create a build, the build that was created, send it to somewhere. So what does it give us in the beginning? Well, for example, in my early programming, it happened that you pushed some code that didn't compile. It happened probably to a few more people in the audience. I hope I'm not alone in that. So that's the first feedback you get from continuous integration. It's red. It just doesn't work. Someone had to be kicked in the ass because he pushed code that doesn't compile. And I don't want to like make you buy some particular continuous integration server. We use Travis. It's paid for like private repositories on GitHub, but for open source it's free. So I use it for myself personally for every project I create on GitHub. The first commit is, of course, initial commit. The second is Travis integration, which is cool. And configuring Travis is very simple. So if you have some open source and you want to add Travis, you simply create a YML file with some few lines of text. Seriously, that's like 5 lines, yeah. And that's all. After you push the next time, it will automatically build your application, which is already a gain. Of course, you need to log into Travis first and enable Travis for particular project, which is another 2 steps, but it takes like 30 seconds. And after you start using this particular hosted service, there is no issue if you use Jenkins on your machine that is staying in some room where there is cold, and you go in the summer with your laptop and sit there and code for 8 hours, so nobody sees you. But with hosted solutions, you have to, for example, if you want to create a release build signed with your certificate, it's a problematic issue because the key must be there, the key store, also the password to the key store and your key to the application. So most of the solutions, continuous integrations, have encryption of some kind, and it's pretty safe. After you encrypt it, nobody except for the Travis can decrypt stuff. So if you are hacked on both GitHub and Travis, you're probably lost your application and someone will push some random stuff to your code, but it's very unlikely that these 2 services are hacked at the same time, just to have your another clone of Facebook replacement. So after you have your continuous integration integrated, there is time to get these builds to the world. The first thing you'll probably want to do is to have them sent to your client, because you don't want to spend 5 minutes every day doing that, or even if you're doing that every week, you don't want to spend these 5 minutes. It's probably better to play some foosball, right, or ping pong, using that time. So I used 2 free solutions for that until now. The first one I tried was TestFairy. It's pretty cool because it takes your build and it injects some code in there. Might be scary a bit, but it allows you to, for example, see the testers using your applications and how they make it crash. There are other services for that, not necessarily this app testing platform, but that's really cool if you just can look at your user's hands. And another thing is, you probably know it, it's Crashlytics Beta, or right now it's Fabric, part of Fabric. And right now we are just using that because the integration is very simple. It's based on Gradle. Not to say that, for example, TestFairy it's very complicated to make it. This is probably true for all services like that. It's just one push to the server with CURL, or just Gradle integration. Shouldn't be harder than that. If someone wants you to do more, they're probably doing something bad. And you have your builds sent to your testers, but the next thing you want to send the builds to the users, right? Like every feature, every new feature. Of course, I said it's not your decision. So it's a button that product owner will press. In our case, it's once a week. He will pick some builds and just push it to production. And we push to alpha or beta. I think it's alpha in our case, but it doesn't really matter. It depends if you have like internal testers and external testers. And how do you do that? It's also very simple. Google provided us with two ways, using Java and using Python. I used Python in the beginning, but some smart guys created a few plugins, Gradle plugins, so you can easily integrate, push to Google Play, to alpha, to beta, even to production, with just a few lines in your build Gradle. So that's cool. And if you need a working example of what I've said today, you can check out my GitHub repository for Fill Games Android client, or if there are any iOS developers, my friend created the same for iOS. So grab it whenever you want. It's actually, I run the command on this particular project. So right now we will look at what happened. So let me go back to the computer. So I said about test ferry. And if I refresh the page, there is a change in the version. I'm not sure you all saw it was before 1.2.34, and right now is 1.4.35. So that's what I typed in the beginning. And if you want to have a look at how I log in Facebook, this is a build from somewhere. So it makes a screenshot every second or something. You won't see the password, of course, even though on our device you would see the last letter. They just clear it, so for security reasons. That will be all. And this particular project has also Crashlytics integration. So there is 1.34 version, and if I go here and it refreshes, let me see. Okay, refresh, and there is 1.35. So that's what a product owner gets like every 15 minutes or every hour. And there is some release notes, which is commit message. In this case, it's just merge to develop. But usually it's some really important message. Some developers just wrote fix bug in the commit message. Right now, they're not doing that because product owner would like to know what happened. So that's another gain from that. And yeah, that's probably all from me because the time is over. And let me go back to the presentation. So there we have some time for questions.
Раз. Does anyone has questions to Maciej? Okay, actually I have one.
Yeah.
So the question is, how big is your team, and what's the types of roles inside your team?
Well, right now my team is 2 Android developers, 2 backend developers, designer and product owner. So that's 6 per people.
And how big of a project are you building? How complex is it?
Well, it's just another application, but you may know it or not. It's a medical application for finding the best doctor around. It's probably called docplanner.ua here in Ukraine.
It's a Ukrainian application?
It's basically for like 30 countries, but I will check if it's here. Oh, sorry. Not this country. Anybody can read this? No.
Oh, maybe you have issues with .ua domain because, like, you can try .com.ua.
Okay.
.com.ua. And I'm not sure if it will work or not. Oh.
Nasz doktor. Yeah, it's called like that in Poland too. But it's probably not used that much here. The mobile applications are only working in Poland, Czech Republic, Turkey, Russia, and we are going to Hungary. Cool. So I would say it's a pretty complex project.
Any other questions? Okay, I see one. Thanks.
Thank you for speech. Okay, I have a question. Like, how much time you need to configure this system into continuous integration? Sometimes the project is very little. It's costs this time to make this complete steps, or it's possible or useful for a great project, a big one?
So I would say it depends if you did that in the past, because for me it can take like maybe half an hour or maybe less, but at first you would probably take the whole day.
Okay, and how the investors looks at, like, you spend the time to for it's look like nothing, you know?
Well, the gain is later when your tests are always running, even when developers don't run them anymore because they take 3 minutes to run. That's probably another waste from the
unit. Just explain the investors that it's very important for his project, yeah? It's
well,
like,
yes.
Not for programmers, it's like your managers works, yeah?
For me, it's always important, and I had no problems in the past just saying we'll do continuous delivery.
Okay, thank you.
We have another question.
Hi, thank you for your speech. I would like to ask you if there is some manual testing involved, and if yes, on which stage of this process?
Well, it's not built into continuous delivery because in continuous delivery you should be able to push to production without doing manual tests. But we of course do manual tests. Not all our code is covered by tests, so it's just next to it if you need that.
Okay, is it fine? We have another question there.
Hi, thanks for your speech. And we on our project are trying to make this continuous delivery, and we have the problem we have a lot of tests, a lot of UI tests, and our build takes about half of hour to run all of that tests. So maybe you have some solutions for this.
Well, actually, we have the same problem. Our build takes 40 minutes right now because of huge amount of UI tests. But I don't think it's a real problem because product owner will get the build just 40 minutes later.
Okay, thanks.
Actually, I have another question which is related to this one. According to UI tests, do you use any services for testing UI on hundreds of different devices?
No, actually we use emulator on Travis. We just run on a very small, very, I would say, memory constrained device. So it just works like that for us. I'm not sure what I can tell about it. I never had the chance to work with like dozens of devices and be able to run on that. It should probably be useful, okay. But it will also take some more money.
Sure, thanks. Do you have any more questions?
If you don't have more questions, I have one question for you. Is there anyone who didn't do like continuous integration or delivery and on Monday will try to, for example, integrate Travis in his open source project? There is one, two. Yeah. Okay, that's cool.
Okay, thanks Maciej.
Thank you.